This episode is brought to you by Vinitaly International Academy, the toughest Italian wine program. 1,000 candidates have produced 262 Italian wine ambassadors to date. Next courses in Hong Kong, Russia, New York, and Verona. Think you make the cut? Apply now at vinitalyinternational.com.
Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as we journey to some of Italy's most beautiful places in the company of those who know them best, the families who grow grapes and make fabulous wines. Through their stories, we will learn not just about their wines, but also about their ways of life, the local and regional foods and specialities that pair naturally with their wines, and the most beautiful places to visit. We have a wonderful journey of discovery ahead of us, and I hope you will join me. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today we travel into the Prosecco wine hills of Conigliano Valdobbiadene to meet Enrica Fontana, the export manager of Spagnol Col del Sas. Enrica, thank you so much for being our guest this morning. How are you today?
I'm really fine, Mark. Thank you so much.
Good. Well, first of all, Enrica, I'd really like our listeners to gain a vivid picture of this very special and small part of the Prosecco vineyards, which is quite vast, but this special Prosecco Superiore Conigliano Valdobbiadene DOCG, this classic heartland of wine hills. Can you describe it to our listeners?
Yeah, sure. Okay, it is a pleasure for me describing the area where we are. The winery is located in Colbertaldo di Vidor, a small village near the center of Valdobbiadene, inside the Conegliano Valdobbiadene DOCG area. We are in Veneto, in particular in the province of Treviso, a northeast of Italy. Consider 15 kilometers from Venice and 100 kilometers from the beauty mountains, the Dolomites. It is in this zone between the two main centers of Valdobbiadene and Conegliano that we produce the Conegliano Valdobbiadene Prosecco Superiore DOCG, a sparkling white wine that still today can come only from 15 municipalities. In total, there are around 8,000 hectares which are cultivated with glera, the main grapes that we use, of course, for Valdobbiadene Prosecco Superiore DOCG. Then, inside our area, it is possible also to cultivate other local grapes variety like Verdiso, Bianchetta, Pereira, and Glera Lunga, which could be used to make wine, but maximum 50%. And then there are other varieties like Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Pinot Grigio, and Pinot Bianco.
Well, just staying with this area, what I really want our listeners to understand is Prosecco is now produced across the Veneto and Friuli over a quite wide area. But this special heartland, the classic area, it's quite different from the vines on the Pianura. We're onto a steep balcony of beautiful rolling hills, a landscape so beautiful that it's actually been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site for not just the beauty of the landscape, but for the way man has shaped the landscape over centuries, carving out the terraces that support the vines. So it's a really special, beautiful area. I'm picturing it now, somewhere I've been many times, but which I always love returning to. You get a lot of visitors coming both to discover wine, but also to enjoy many things. What are some of the things people can do when they come to the Prosecco heartland, the wine hills of Conigliano Valdobbiadene?
First of all, I want to, as I told you, I want to say that in 2019, the Prosecco hillsides have been recognized as UNESCO World Heritage, and it is very important for us because, as you told Mark, there is a particular patchwork. Okay, so you see in the same location where there are different vineyard plots, woods area, households. And then in the same plot of land, vineyards belong to different wine growers because each of them has his own way to cultivate. But the global vision is really wonderful. And consider, just to give you an image, these hills which cover the area, and they are characterized by a geomorphological conformation known as a hookback. So this series of steep slopes extending in an east-west direction. During centuries, the citizens here have learned to adapt to this environment, shaping its steep slopes. So wine growers created the ciglione, which is the technical name, which is a particular type of terrace that is covered with grass and not with stones. So this is just some details to describe the area. As you introduced here, there are many people who come here, many tourists, and they can do a lot of activities. Consider that in 1966, it was created the Prosecco Road, which is the first wine road in Italy. So visitors can traverse historical villages, vineyards, discovering the countryside, hermitage, medieval remains, churches, and of course, meeting local people. It is possible to organize tastings in the wineries, eat local foods at restaurants, and depends if for lovers of the countryside, they can rent a bike and discover our area biking across vineyards. There are many trekking routes across steep slopes or paths. And for people who love mountains, they could head to Pianezze, 20 minutes far from Valdobbiadene center. Here, there are different trails, paths, and mountains cottages where it is possible to eat typical food like ricotta, cheese, and stay in contact with cows and nature. Of course, if tourists have more interest in culture, in Conegliano there are some historical buildings like Duomo, so the cathedral, and the castle. Other interesting places are Castello di San Salvatore, located in Susegana, and it is an ancient fortress from the 14th century, standing on a hill with a spectacular view. Then there is Mulinetto della Croda, which is very local and famous here in Solighetto, the Church of San Virgilio in Col San Martino, the Church of La Pieve in San Pietro di Felletto.
Wow, so lots and lots of beautiful, beautiful things to see and do. And it's interesting that the Strade del Prosecco was the first wine road in all of Italy. So the Prosecco region has been, this classic heartland has been really a center of wine for a very long time. I know there's a very important wine institute where research has gone on into grape varieties, into winemaking, and it shows how important Prosecco is historically in the scheme of Italian wine.
Yeah. Yes, we consider that in Conegliano there is the Oenologists Wine School, and it is very famous. And then we continue to invest to work here in this area to increase not only a new way to cultivate. We try to do all our best to promote the area because tradition and it's very important for us. And we believe, of course, in what we produce and what we make.
Of course. Now, why don't we speak then about the Spagnol Col d'Alsace wine estate, a little bit about the history and what you're doing today.
Yeah, Spagnol family has been cultivating vineyards since the early 20th century when it all began with grandfather Serafino. And in 1986, we started with a direct production and the sparkling process of wine made with our grapes. Today, our vineyards cover 36 hectares, stretching out over the hills and slopes best suited to this cultivation in the towns of the Conegliano, Valdobbiadene, DOCG, Prosecco Superiore area. One of the most important vineyards for us is the Col d'Alsace, situated on the hill of the same name in the town of Valdobbiadene. And it is a part of our inheritance. So it is a symbol of our family history and the origin of our brand. so a link between our family and territory, Spagnol cul-de-sac. Vineyards have always been managed and worked by the family. So there is the father, Orazio, and one son who work outside in the vineyards with other colleagues or with a team of people. And then there are the other two sons, both winemakers, who supervise the winemaking process in the winery. So we produce Conegliano Valdobbiadene Prosecco Superiore DOCG exclusively from grapes cultivating in our vineyards. So all the lands, every vine, single cluster of grapes are monitored, taken care of, and follow along their way to the bottle. So it is important for us because we follow the whole process, so from the grapes in the vineyards to the final product.
Okay, so that's very important that in the DOCG, it's entirely from grapes cultivated in the Spagnol family's own vineyards. Now, Enrica, can you explain briefly the method of producing Prosecco? The world loves Prosecco, knows it as a wonderful Italian sparkling wine, but it's not everybody knows how it's produced.
Okay. Consider that we harvest only by hand, and after the harvest, usually in the month of September, the grapes are picked up and taken to the winery. And so we start different production stages. First of all, the pressing. So using press machine, which press the grapes gently in order to obtain the grape must. At the end, decanting takes place. So the cloudy must is left to settle at low temperature, consider around 8-10 Celsius degrees in stainless steel tanks. After about 24 hours, the clear part of the must is separated from the sediment, and later the first fermentation takes place thanks to the use of yeast, which are added to the must and they activate the alcoholic fermentation. The temperature is controlled, and here it is around 18-20 Celsius degree. At the end of the first fermentation, that it takes consider minimum 20 days, we obtain the base wine. And now it is the time to blend together base wines in order to create cuvée. This not happen for Rive because it's a selection, so it is another. He remains the same base wine, and we follow Martinotti Charmat. So wine is put with sugar and yeast inside specific pressurized steel tanks, which are called autoclaves. So during this process, so the wine re-ferments, and yeast use sugar to create the carbon dioxide, which generate the bubbles. So this method in Martinotti Charmat is really important for us because we preserve the primary aromas of the grapes, keeping their scents to the wine. And the second fermentation takes place at least 30 days. But in our case, for all our wines, it is protected for months. So just in this short time, just to introduce of our production method.
Okay, that's really important to explain, Enrica, because I think that the Martinotti method, the Martinotti Charmat, as opposed to fermentation, secondary fermentation in the bottle, this method is what gives Prosecco its real character and charm with that freshness of fruit that you described. Now, you mentioned a Rive wine. The Rive this is something that not everybody is aware of. These 43 special single vineyard designated Grand Cru sites of the Prosecco Superiore Conegliano Valdobbiadene area, where we're actually able to taste the terroir, the single vineyards. And you have a very important Rive wine. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
So first of all, just to introduce, Rive in our dialect means steep slopes. So a vineyard where it is really difficult to work and harvest the grapes. As you mentioned, inside the DOCG area, there are 33 Rive, and there are 33 places with particular microclimate, exposure, and soil. Grapes are harvested only by hand, and it is compulsory to write on the label the place where vineyards are cultivated and the vintage. This type of wine is very important because it expresses the main characteristics of an area. So each vintage is different from another one, because inside the Rive you find the territory, the soil, the history of vine variety, and of course the wine growers. So with product Rive, we search an identity which is given thanks to the aspects I told before. So soil, microclimate, man, vintage.
So they're a really individual expression of Prosecco, unique, as you say, to the territory and to the producer.
Yes, sure. So we produce Rive di Solighetto because we have different hectares in Solighetto, specific on the Cisa Hill. And we have selected grapes which are cultivated on the northern side, south-facing vineyard. And here we have grapes which catch the sun during the first hours of the day, and thanks to the wind coming from the north, it is a perfect place where you don't have humidity and you have a good sapidity and acidity, thanks also to the soil. In our case, the soil is composed by polygenic conglomerate and rocks rich in iron. And these are grapes that, once individually vinified and subjected to the sparkling process, are able to express the very quintessence of our territory. And so in our river, it is not just a Conegliano Valdobbiadene DOCG for aperitif, but we prefer to match with foods because it is really important also this aspect for all our wines. So for our rive, of course, the second fermentation followed the Italian method. So the wine re-ferments in the autoclave, and we have that the wine remains for minimum 3 months on fine lees for the first fermentation, and then other 3 months on the second fermentation. At the end, we have a wine with a good structure, and as I told you, yeah, perfect to match with food. I imagine a risotto with crayfish and zucchini or pasta. So yes.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. And actually, I had a chance to sample the Rive di Solighetto wine, and it is, as you say, a more structured and more complex Prosecco. And I can well imagine it with some of the wonderful cuisine that is found in your area. Let's talk a little bit about food then, Enrica, about some piatti tipici and about Prosecco Superiore matching well with the foods of the territory.
Okay, we in our area, soppressa and cheese are two elements very common.
Soppressa being the salami type of sausage, cured meat, which I imagine goes very well with brut prosecco, with the bubbles helping to clean the palate from the richness of the meat.
Yeah, usually we eat soppressa and cheese drinking a glass of fondo. Soppressa is like salami made with pork meat, and it aged more than a normal salami, so consider 8 months. We have different type of cheese, from fresh cheese to the season, so it really depends, but most of our cheeses come from cow's milk. And we eat usually on Sunday with the family spiedo. So it is another regional food, more local, and it is a spit made with pork, rabbit, and chicken meats, adding aromatic herb like rosemary. And it is slowly cooked. So usually spiedo is served with polenta, and it is a very traditional food in this area.
Polenta is really important in the Veneto, then. That's something that you would eat regularly.
Yeah, and then we eat all first courses, so risotto, tagliatelle, lasagne, and they are perfect with vegetables or with ragu. A glass of wine with bubbles, brut, or the extra dry version is perfect. Of course, with the Prosecco Superiore, you can match together first courses with vegetables, wild meats, carpaccio. The version extra dry and dry can also be served with a dessert like a jam tart or dry cookies, which are very common here, or a tiramisu.
Just to be clear for our listeners who may not be familiar, an extra dry or a dry, of course, refers to the Proseccos that are increasingly on the sweeter side. Gently sweet, not overly sweet. A lovely soft style of Prosecco.
Yeah. So consider that in our area, you have different type of wines. So the brut version is the dry version because it has less sugar than the extra dry. The extra dry is around from 12 to 17 grams per liter, and then the dry version has more sugar than the other ones. Okay. So the dry version usually is drink with a dessert.
So this range of Proseccos from the simpler wines, perhaps called Fondo, as you mentioned, to the more complex Rive wines and the different levels of sweetness allow Prosecco to be enjoyed at various times of day and indeed throughout a meal with different courses. You've given us a really beautiful picture of this special small area of Prosecco, and I hope that our listeners will begin to look for and understand these nuances between the different areas that produce Prosecco, and most importantly, for the Prosecco Superiore Conigliano Valdobbiadene, DOCG. It's a long name for a wine, but it's important for people to understand why the corner of the world where you are produces such great wines.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark, for your explanation. Yeah, the name is a little bit long, but it's really important that people understand. And of course, people are welcome to visit the area and in our territory because it's really nice. And it is the historical place here for the Prosecco Superiore. So you want to welcome you to visit this beautiful area.
In fact, I noticed that Spagnol Col d'Alsace, the family, have an agriturismo, a farmhouse where people could come and rent and stay and really immerse themselves in the wine hills of Prosecco. And that's probably, I think, the best way to learn about and taste and absorb an area, really feel and get to know what it has to offer. So I hope some of our listeners will come and visit.
Yeah, as you told, it is the best thing is coming here, tasting together a glass of wine, see the vineyards, meeting local people, meeting the wine growers, and in this way you can have a complete imaging of our territory.
Yes, well, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today, Enrica, and for sharing your world with us and the wines of Spagnol Col d'Alsace. I look forward to coming to the area and seeing you sometime in the future.
Thanks, Mark, and I hope to meet you soon. You are welcome, and thank you again for your time.
Grazie, Enrica. Ciao.
Grazie, ciao.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, chin chin.
Hi guys, I'm Joy Livingston and I am the producer of the Italian Wine Podcast. Thank you for listening. We are the only wine podcast that has been doing a daily show since the pandemic began. This is a labor of love and we are committed to bringing you free content every day. Of course, this takes time and effort, not to mention the cost of equipment, production, and editing. We would be grateful for your donations, suggestions, requests, and ideas. For more information on how to get in touch, go to ItalianWinePodcast.com.